Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Tuesday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. Up first here, again, fire danger map. No fire danger at all anywhere in the state, possibly for the rest of the summer season. So moving on to the satellite imagery, lots of clouds. You've got a weak system moving across the southeast coast, so clouds and areas of rain today down there, cool temperatures, sunshine though breaking out over the Copper River Basin, and allowing temperatures to push up into the mid to upper 60s this afternoon and back into the clouds from the Alaska Range into the central interior areas. Lots of clouds back to the west, higher top clouds back here along and west of the Alaska Range. A system here over the southern Bering Sea that's in the upper air is spinning right in through here, but the whole thing is shifting southward due to push from the north here that's going on across the Russian Far East, coming out of the Arctic there on pretty good northwest winds, and that pushing this, what was a front, kind of stretching out. Just have it in as a trough today, but you can see lots of clouds coming southward here with that increasing north wind condition, and then lots of clouds here across the Brooks Range on up across the Arctic coastal areas, and rain falling throughout much of this area over the last 12 hours. And they're picked up about anywhere from 1/10 to 4/10 of an inch of rain over quite a widespread area there from the northern Seward Peninsula back up across the Brooks Range and onto the North Slope. Today, light northerly winds and snow fell at Barrow and Atchison. Starting last night and throughout much of the day today, light snow, nothing accumulating. Temperatures down to about 34 degrees at both locations, so nothing accumulating on the ground. At least the webcam didn't show it this afternoon. Otherwise, areas of rain down and along this trough axis that extends all the way out into the Bering Sea there, so some moisture in across the Pribilofs today. Also the Alaska Peninsula back to the eastern Aleutians, and as I mentioned, up here across much of the northwest interior. More convective here to the east. Some isolated thunderstorms this afternoon, late this afternoon, developing really in just one spot right about just to the west of the green areas there. Otherwise, increasing sunshine as you get down in the Copper River Basin with some pretty nice temperatures, and not bad along the North Gulf Coast. Looks like Cordova is in some sunshine as well as northern Cook Inlet, Turnagain Arm, Girdwood, Portage in those areas, and then the rainfall here spreading into the southeast coast from south to north throughout the afternoon hours. That first front moves eastward here, weakens into a trough. Another band develops and keeps the rain going across the Panhandle throughout the night tonight. Weak low off the north coast. They're only about 1,001 millibars, so not much wind associated with that. And also not much wind here over the southeast interior. Pretty light and variable winds with no gradient at all, really. And then a good batch of rain organizing here across all of the western interior. A little more showery hit and miss up here to the north, but not all that much. Pretty continuous, though, developing on down to the south. This front diving southeastward here, so definitely rain along the coast. Kind of a break for the Alaska Peninsula later tonight. Some showers spreading into the eastern Aleutians. Drying out over the Pribilofs there with increasing west-northwesterly winds, and a series of lows up here across the Arctic from Mackenzie River Delta back toward to just northeast of Wrangel Island into the Russian Far East, and that those lows in conjunction with the high out here over the western Aleutians, that tending to tighten up the gradient here across the central Bering Sea. So winds will be on the increase, coming up to small craft advisories 25 to 30 knots. For tomorrow here, see good west-northwest winds at the surface there, that pushing a warm front, so rain across the Pribilofs, that low center dropping into the Gulf of Anadyr, and band of rain all the way down to the Alaska Peninsula eastern Aleutians. Front here finally develops, those troughs come together, and roughly a front, good south to north flow in advance of that. So there'll be a narrow area of some moderate to heavy precipitation, first moving into Prince William Sound and gradually shifting eastward, mostly along the North Gulf Coast. So a good shot of rain for Cordova, possibly Valdez tomorrow. Wet conditions, periods of rain, cloudy skies, south central Alaska, the Kuskokwim Valley. Moderate showers along the Alaska Range with showers and rain down across Bristol Bay, the Aleutian Range and Alaska Peninsula, and kind of on the edge there between the one moving eastward and then this coming down from the northwest for the areas from about Cold Bay over to False Pass and on Alaska. And less rain for the Panhandle tomorrow, more showery, but don't look for a lot of clearing yet. Showers right along the coastline, but drier conditions off to the southwest. And we'll see for the outlook for Thursday. Another front actually pushes through, does develop, but it's inland. So looks like more rain late tomorrow night, and on Thursday becoming more showery in the afternoon, especially to the south, probably ending down toward Prince of Wales Island, but kind of continuous light rain up here along the North Gulf Coast areas, becoming showery from Cordova on into Prince William Sound. And it still looks pretty wet here for the Cook Inlet area, Kenai Peninsula, up into especially the Susitna Valley. And probably not as much rain on Thursday for the Madanuska Valley as what you'll see tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night. Otherwise, partly mostly sunny from the Alaska Range across the Tanana Valley up into the southern upper Yukon. And right on the outer perimeter of that, could see some isolated thunderstorms. Upper level trough axis right through here along in advance of that, a band of rain here from Kodiak Island, northeast Bristol Bay, northward, as I mentioned, Susitna Valley, Cook Inlet, right up across Koyukuk Valley, central interior, on out to the eastern north slope and Arctic coast. Drier conditions behind the trough axis, kind of cooler and cloudy. Some sunshine breaking out in the Kuskokwim Valley, then some showers along the Kuskokwim Mountains down to the Kilbrooks, and then could be mostly sunny, possibly. Might be a little optimistic or ambitious putting that much sun in the forecast here for the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, but that same sort of pattern all the way up into the Noatak Valley, Kotzebue Sound, down to Selawik. Isolated showers for the Seward Peninsula. Low pressure here southwest of St. Lawrence Island. Still looking at good westerly flow on those winds carrying surges of moisture in, light rain, fog, drizzle, IFR across the Pribilos, right on down to the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula. Narrow ridging here across the Aleutians, looking pretty good. Possibly a day much like today out in that area on Thursday for the Aleutians, with this staying to the south at least through Thursday afternoon on into the evening. And for temperatures across the southeast coast today, about the same, mostly in the mid to upper 50s, with 56 over at Metlakatla. Klawock had 59, 57 Sitka, 56 both at Petersburg and Wrangell, with 55 degrees at the state capital. Skagway up to 60, 63 Yakutat, about the same in Cordova. And with the sunshine, McCarthy 66 degrees, that was at 3 p.m. this afternoon. Also Willow 66 degrees with some sunshine there. Otherwise Talkeetna at 60, Palmer 61, 58 Kenai, 56 down at Homer, and Seward 59 degrees, 57 there at Kodiak. Back up to 61 at Northway. Actually Tok was 63, and then back down in the upper 50s at Fairbanks, but then back to 61 at Tanana. 56 at Fort Yukon, and a 53 degree reading here at Bettles. Anatuvik, little elevation there, so down to 39. Same thing there at Umiat Airfield, 39 degrees. Mid-30s there on the central coast with a light snow falling today. Either side of that back into the 40s. 45 to 50 there, Kotzebue Sound, the northwest coast, with mid-50s for the southern Seward Peninsula. 55 over at Nome, 55 at Caltag, and a 59 degree reading at McGrath, with temperatures cooling as you get out toward the coastline to near 50 and then into the upper 40s right along the coast, with Amonic at 49 and 48 at Macoriac, 45 Wales, about the same there at Savunga and Gamble, and south to the Pribilos, 49 degrees at St. Paul, with a 52 degree reading at Atka, 54 Adak, up to 55 at Shimia, and 49 Nikolsky for like the third day in a row. 51 degrees over at Unalaska, lower to mid-50s to the Alaska Peninsula, all the way up into Bristol Bay. And for the lows tonight, 40s all through that area, the southwest interior, up into the Tanana Valley, down to 45 to 50 tonight, and upper 40s to lower 50s south of the mountains. Cooler in the Copper River Basin with the more clear skies, at least to start with, and then 40s to lower 50s for the Panhandle. Brooks Range on out to the Arctic coast, 35 to 40. And for the highs tomorrow, rebounding up here, mid-40s to mid-50s there, possibly even upper 50s in the eastern North Slope. Back into the 65 to 70 degree range here for the central Tanana Valley, up to Fort Yukon, on over toward the Eagle, or it may approach 70 in the afternoon. And then with the clouds and rain, mid to upper 50s, south central Alaska, Copper River Basin. About the same for the Panhandle, mid to upper 50s again, and also lower 50s out to the west. Flying weather, IFR along and south side of the Brooks Range into the northern Koyukuk, Kobuk Valley areas back to the northwest. A big slug IFR here over the southeast Bering Sea into Bristol Bay and inland there along and west of the Aleutian Range. VFR, eastern interior, not much of it, but it is there. And then IFR over the southern 2/3 of the southeast coast. And by tomorrow afternoon, that really fades away to just marginal VFR for the Panhandle, a narrow band of IFR up along the North Gulf Coast into Prince William Sound. VFR eastern interior, marginal central back to the west to the coast there. The few breaks around Nunivak Island. IFR now restricted over the Pribilofs, and marginal for the Aleutians and the Alaska Peninsula. Both Anaktuvuk and Atigun, marginal VFR, lowest conditions, both those passes on the southern approaches. Lake Clark and Merrill, occasionally marginal throughout the entire day. Same forecast for rainy. Windy, also marginal, but Mentaston and Isabel should be sea lanes visibility is high enough to keep it VFR, both passes there. And for Tanita, VFR gradually turning marginal throughout the day, especially into the afternoon. And for Portage, VFR to start early and then IFR by the afternoon or into the afternoon. Chilkoot and White, little marginal. Freezing levels 2,000 to 4,000 feet here. Some pretty chilly air up there coming down into the Chukchi Sea, 4,000 feet, actually all the way down to the Alaska Peninsula and Bristol Bay. This late tonight, early tomorrow morning. Much warmer to the west, 14,000 feet over the Russian Far East. And then a little bit of a gradient here across the Panhandle, running 8,000 to 12,000 feet to the Queen Charlottes. And for icing, above about 10,000 of the light rime variety here over the southern Panhandle, but falling to above 5,000 here on the North Gulf Coast, 4,000 feet back to the west. Northward there, quite an area of it tomorrow with all the moisture we've got spreading into the area. And the winds aloft showing a trough axis right through here along the west coast. A north-northwest jet sailing south-southeastward, 70 to 100 knots, up to 120 knots over Russia. Splits right through this area after converging at 140 knots there, but diverges 70 knots southwest into the North Gulf Coast. 9,000 foot wind flow chart looking like this. Good flow out of the northwest, 30 to 40 knots across the Bering Sea. Diminishes down to 25 across the Alaska Peninsula, taking a turn to the north throughout the interior, but about 20 to 30 along the coast, 10 to 20 over the inland areas, southwest 20 trying to get into the Panhandle. 3,000 feet, I've got a trough, another one right off the coast midday tomorrow afternoon here for the southeast coast, so that looks wet there again. South to north flow increasing here for the Alaska Peninsula. Good strong northwest winds out over the Bering Sea, much lighter across the west. And from there, looking at turbulence, of course with that northwest wind, mechanical turbulence, occasional widespread moderate here for the Alaska Peninsula. Eastern Aleutians over to about Atka, light isolated moderate chop there, maybe to Adak. Definitely for the Pribilofs and up across Kodiak, the Aleutian Range in the southern western Alaska Range here and southern Cook Inlet, and then maybe a little choppy from the Wrangell Mountains in across the Lynn Canal Glacier Bay area, and then some spotty stuff down to the south. And after the break, I'll be back to look at the ice edge and the marine forecasts.
Coming up on Destination Tomorrow, we take a look at NASA's Aviation Safety Program. We'll look back at some highlights of the program and find out what the future holds for aviation. All this and more next on Destination Tomorrow.
Judy, tell me a little bit more about the icing protection system. Do all planes have it?
There's what we call an anti-ice system where you don't allow the ice to grow at all. That's if you got a very hot leading edge. You see that in jets. Then there's a de-icing system which has pneumatic boots, that the boots will wrap around that leading edge, they'll inflate and pop the ice off. So you let the ice grow and then you got to get it off. The pneumatic boots are typically what you see with turboprop aircraft.
Does icing affect planes in, say, a warm climate?
Icing occurs everywhere. You've got to be aware of it. I've got a pilot friend who told me the worst icing he encountered was flying from Florida to the Caribbean in July at 16,000 feet. The worst icing he ever saw. But icing really can occur anywhere and any time. One of the things we do here at NASA is to have better designs. So maybe a system that would automatically turn on the ice protection system if a sensor goes out. The short-term solution is to train the pilots and educate them about how to detect icing, how to be aware of it, train them how to get out of the icing environment if and when they need to. Ideally, icing is a non-issue in the future. We're working to get there.
For many of us, fear is the biggest problem when it comes to flying. We thought it may be helpful to present you with some statistics that may or may not be helpful to those of you who are fearful flyers.
First, your chances of being involved in an aircraft accident are approximately 1 in 11 million, while your chances of being killed in an automobile accident are about 1 in 5,000, proving that the most dangerous part of your flight is the drive to the airport.
One last fact. Statistically, you have more of a chance of dying from the food served on board the flight than being involved in an aircraft accident.
Most people who have flown in an airplane have experienced turbulence. NASA is working on new warning systems to help pilots avoid dangerous turbulence. Paula Vaden has more.
If you've ever flown in an airplane, you are probably familiar with turbulence. Even for the most experienced flyers, the sudden, sometimes violent, irregular air motion can be an unsettling experience. In most cases, turbulence is merely an inconvenience that passengers and flight crews must endure. But in cases of severe turbulence, the violent shaking can not only cause serious injury to passengers and crew, it can also be fatal. In an effort to help aircraft avoid turbulence, researchers at NASA are testing new onboard aircraft systems. The Airborne Research Integrated Experiment System, or ARES, uses experimental systems that detect turbulence minutes before an aircraft encounters it. This new system may allow pilots to avoid severe turbulence, making flying safer. I spoke with Neil O'Connor in the Crew Systems branch at NASA Langley Research Center to find out more.
You can think of turbulence as any phenomenon in the atmosphere that's going to upset the airplane. Changes in wind that can cause the airplane to be disrupted from its normal flight. You can also get turbulence whenever you have wind rushing over the top of a mountain. The leeward side of a mountain can be very turbulent. You can also get turbulence wherever the jet stream is active. There's a high wind speed in the region of the jet stream, but slower right nearby. Thunderstorms can cause turbulence. Everyone knows right nearby the storm, but sometimes even 50 or 100 miles away in the clear air, you can get turbulence from a thunderstorm.
So Neil, how are pilots avoiding severe turbulence now?
For the most part, pilots have several simple options. They listen to the radio to hear if other pilots have already encountered turbulence in that area. So that means somebody's already been hit. They can also look at their onboard radar and try to, based on their experience, can extrapolate what they think might be, but it's not really foolproof. And they can also get a general forecast from the government sources or from their own airline.
There we got some turbulence now. We're about 3 miles short.
Though seldom damaging to modern aircraft, turbulence is the leading cause of in-flight injuries among passengers and flight crews. On average, 58 injuries aboard aircraft are reported each year. 98% of these injuries occur when unsuspecting passengers or crew are unbuckled or out of their seats when an aircraft encounters turbulence. Currently, there are no instruments on board aircraft to detect turbulence before a plane encounters it. NASA researchers hope to change this by incorporating new turbulence radar systems within existing onboard weather radars. With this new radar system in place, researchers hope to provide pilots with enough warning to either avoid the turbulent area or at least give passengers and flight attendants enough time to return to their seats and buckle up.
The radar system itself will just be a software upgrade to the existing wind shear radar that's already on board the airplanes. The beauty of that, of course, is that since it's just an upgrade to an already certified piece of hardware, it should be relatively inexpensive because you're just incrementally changing what's out there already.
So Neil, tell me how exactly this new system is going to work.
The way it'll work for the pilot is that he'll flip a switch that's labeled turbulence, and then he'll have the new software running. It'll be running mostly at cruise altitudes where pilots typically allow people to move around the cabin. It's not a problem when you're climbing or descending because everyone's already strapped in. So if you have a turbulence encounter there, it's not a big issue because everyone's already buckled in. But we want to help make a difference at altitude when you don't always know there's going to be turbulence out there. And this new product will be able to increase the capability of the system and increase the pilot's confidence in the accuracy of the system, leading to a better, safer environment.
Besides radar, is there any other kind of research with turbulence?
Doing other research, both onboard and otherwise. The onboard system is called the in situ turbulence warning system, and that's a system that uses accelerometers on the airplane to measure what the airplane feels at a given moment. That'll be transmitted automatically to all other airplanes in the general area, along with the location. And a receiving airplane will take that data and adapt it to its own size and class of airplane, and then assess whether or not it's a threat to that airplane. And if it's a threat, then it'll tell the pilot. Another way of enhancing what we have now is improving our forecast capability. And that gets into modeling of the weather and other phenomena of the atmosphere to better understand what the potential is for turbulence.
So Neil, what are your hopes for this project?
Well, the ultimate goal, of course, is to increase the safety and reduce injuries caused by turbulence on the airplane. Right now, it's very easy to prevent injuries when you know you're going to have turbulence. The pilot says, hey, we got to buckle up for a few minutes. Everyone does it, no one gets hurt. But you don't always know the turbulence is coming. So sometimes if you don't know, people are walking around and the plane gets a lurch, someone's going to get hurt. And that happens now. So we know we can make a difference by improving the product.
That's it for this edition of NASA's Destination Tomorrow. Thanks for joining us. I'm Steele McGonigal.
And I'm Kara O'Brien. For all of us at NASA, we'll see you next time.
Welcome back. Well, the sea ice is gone here off the eastern Beaufort Sea coast now, so it's sea ice-free waters all the way along the North Gulf Coast and a fair distance up to the north. Looking at the coastal wind forecast, 10 to 15 knots out of the west for the northern panhandle, and then west to southwest at 20. For the southern areas, small craft advisory there for northern Lynn Canal, 25 knots, 5-foot seas, otherwise south at 15. For Thursday, we've got small craft advisories all along the coast up to the north due to the sea heights of 9 to 11 feet, and then throw the winds in 25-knot winds with 12 to 13-foot seas here on the south coast. Southeast 20, 5-foot seas, Clarence Strait, and south 15, Frederick Sound roughly, and Stevens Passage especially, on up through Lynn Canal for Prince William Sound. Southeast 15, southwest 15 to 20 for the North Gulf Coast. 20-knot southwest winds back along Kodiak Island. Shelikof Strait, though, a little stronger, 25 knots out of the southwest. And southwest 20 for Cook Inlet tomorrow. And then those fall back and switch around, become kind of light, but southeast at 10, north of the Forelands. Turning south at 10, light variable winds 10 knots here at Kachemak Bay, the Barrens. North Gulf Coast, east at 10, Prince William Sound. Still looking at westerlies 15 to 20 knots here blowing across Kodiak Island. And for the Alaska Peninsula, west winds 25 knots. Same thing for Bristol Bay, as well as the area southwest of Kodiak Island. And for Thursday, we've got gales in the forecast here from Cape Sarachef to Castle Cape. West winds 35 knots, seas at about 11 feet. Just under a gale here on the north side. West 30 there with 13-foot seas. Falling back to 20 knots for Bristol Bay, and 25-knot winds Sitkinak to Castle Cape. For the Fox Islands tomorrow and to the west, west winds 30 knots, 25-knot winds, small craft advisories Adak and Atka, fading back to northwest to 20, and then getting more variable and lighter out towards Shimmy and Kiska Islands. Then those turn south, 15 knots out there, picking up to 20 knots, back around to the west-southwest, 20 to 25 for Adak and Atka. So a little bit lighter on Thursday, but still pretty good wind there, especially on Alaska Island, south side. Gales in the forecast there, 35 knots out of the west with 10-foot seas, but up to 14 feet on the Bering Sea side of the islands. And south of Nunivak Island, west winds 20 knots blowing into Kuskokwim Bay, up to 30 knots for the Pribilofs. That'll be the windiest area the next couple of days out there. Northwest just 15 north of Nunivak Island, back up to 20. St. Lawrence Island, northwest 20, 11-foot seas out here for the area west of St. Matthew Island. And then that picks up, but you drop a couple of feet off the seas here. So 25 knots out of the northwest, west 30 again for the Pribilofs, west 20. South of Nunivak Island, 15-knot winds here north of the island, back up across St. Lawrence Island to the Bering Strait. And for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, light variable winds at 10 knots tomorrow, turning south at about 15 for the central coast. Light southwest breeze, barely a breeze there on the west side. West 15 from Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson to Wales. Northwest at 20 with 5-foot seas. Then those 10 to 15 knots out of the northwest turn variable or south at 10 on the west side. And then we've got general easterly wind patterns shaping up here, but only at about 10 to 15 knots for the central coast eastward, with the lightest winds and slightest seas over toward Demarcation Point. And for tonight again, several troughs, actually a front trying to generate right through this area here. Good upper level trough, northwest winds behind it, more southerly flow in advance of it. So quite an area of precipitation here over the western interior from the Arctic coast all the way down, spreading into Bristol Bay. Showers Kodiak Island, a break, more rain here coming into the Panhandle. This trough actually develops into a front and well, moves on through for Wednesday. And this front back through here brings rain across south central Alaska. And pretty good rain coming across the area here, the heaviest, of course, in advance of the front along the North Gulf Coast, but some good rainfall amounts coming in, but nothing too terribly heavy, just pretty widespread, and moderate showers up over the Brooks Range. Another warm front with moisture, good northwest-northwest winds in the Bering Sea. And then this front pushes eastward across the Panhandle pretty rapidly, takes a good jog to the east there with more rain tapering off in the afternoon. Another trough keeps it wet and unsettled and chilly over south central Alaska.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.